Hi there, welcome and welcome back. If you're a creative professional doing excellent work, hitting your deadlines, keeping clients happy, delivering quality work on time, always showing up, and yet you're still exhausted in a way that rest just won't touch, this video is for you. Because what I'm about to tell you is the exact opposite of what you've heard and what you've been told about burnout. So, rest is not the problem. Boundaries are not the problem. And your workload is not the problem. The problem is the frequency you're creating with. And I know that sounds a little woo woo, but we will make it practical, even though I love the woo woo. But if we start to see the frequency that we're creating at, and until we understand that, you'll always keep ending up back in the same place over and over again, no matter how much you rest. And so here's what the cycle looks like. And let me know if this sounds familiar to you. You get a project, you get really excited about the project and all the creative potential that it has. You pour everything into it. You pour your heart, your soul, you give it more than you actually have. You go above and beyond. Your best thinking, your best work, everything you bring to the table. You deliver, the client is happy, and then you crash. And not just a regular tired from a project kind of crash, but like a real crash. And there's a fatigue that sets in. There's an exhaustion that kind of sets in. And it's not a dramatic thing that happens. You don't collapse and fall, but it's a really internal shift. It's quiet. And there's just this emptiness that tends to set in over time, and things start to feel a little flat. You tell yourself you just need the weekend, and so you take the weekend off. And by the time Monday rolls around, by the end of the day, you're already feeling the same that you did on Friday. The same worries, the same pressures, the same politics have set in. And so you take a longer break, you take a vacation, you go away for 2 weeks, and then you come back, and within a few days, same thing. The rest didn't really recover you enough to stay long term. It just helped you in that moment. And as soon as you got back to work, the same cycles, the same feelings, the same patterns start to creep back in. And here's the part that makes it really, really difficult for high achieving creative professionals because you know you can deliver excellent work from this place of exhaustion, from this place of burnout, because you've done it all before. And you do it professionally, and your output looks great, and the clients are happy, and nobody knows what's going on inside. And that's exactly why we don't catch it, because we have broken the feedback. We've broken the feedback loop. We have assumed that this is just the process that creatives go in when they're in the industry, that you should accept it. So we override the signals that we feel. And when that feedback loop between what your body's feeling and the actions you take with it, when that's broken, we look at external forces outside of us that give us the data that say everything's fine. The work was delivered. It was great work. The clients are happy. You look great to all of your colleagues. You look great to everyone outside. But inside, the burnout that has been stacking up is starting to erode down on your body. And your body is trying to tell you that something is wrong. We are trained by the industry, by culture, by every mentor you've ever listened to that just told us to push through. Trust the work, trust the output, trust the outside validation over your body. And we blindly agreed because everyone was doing it. We seemed to think this is what you do. We've been leveraging athletic mantras for the creative process. And while sometimes that works, they're two very different cycles and energies and systems. So we get caught up in this industry. We get caught up in believing this idea that if we just keep pushing through, and so we keep going. And the cost over time accumulates that we can't quite see yet. Those creative ideas that used to come easily now require much more force. The work that used to feel meaningful now just feels mechanical. The thing that made you fall in love with this field in the first place and being able to get paid for your creative passion, now you can't even remember why you wanted to do this in the first place and if you should even be there. And that's not a burnout moment. That is what burnout looks like when it erodes you over time and dulls your creative senses. And it happens so gradually that we don't recognize it until years later because we've been overriding our body. We've been overriding the signals in the system. Now, I have been creating for over 25 years professionally, and I know this cycle very intimately. not just theoretically. I lived it for years. And at the height of everything, I was working full time at Disney as a digital design lead. I had two companies running on the side, and I was taking freelance on top of that. So my days were packed. I was working 6 days a week, 1 day off. And I was financially responsible for more than just myself. So the idea of just stopping everything wasn't an option I had. And the reason I was doing all of this was to build something really big, and people were counting on me. So I had obligations. And so I thought to myself, because I'm pretty strong and I'm professional and I can handle a lot, I told myself, if I can just keep going, if I could just keep going, get to this next spot, get to this next level, just push a little harder, that there would be a light at the end of the tunnel and I'd have time to rest. Sounded simple. It was the logic in my head. But that light kept moving, and that tunnel, that end point kept getting pushed out. And so there was always this rat race that I was in, this treadmill of just keep working, keep bringing money in, keep working, keep bringing money in. But there was no relief. There was no real help. Some of it came in and out, but that wasn't an option. And went on for about 6 years. And what I learned looking back on that was what I was building was the capacity to hold an enormous amount of stress and burnout. I had everything running. I was spinning a ton of plates and I was running on fumes. And somewhere in there, I prided myself that I could make it work and keep going. That there was some kind of unsaid achievement to the fact that I could hold all of this. And there is something in that capacity, but it was the wrong capacity to expand and hold. Where now it's my capacity to expand and hold creativity that is more beneficial for everybody involved than me holding trauma and burnout and resentment and all of those things. And so during that time, I was producing, I was delivering good work, I was delivering quality work, I was functioning at a high level professionally, but I was missing my own life. For that time period, which I think was about 6.5, almost 7 years, it was all work. There was nothing else on the side. There was no fun and enjoyment. And the result was not what I thought it was going to be. In that time frame, the only thing that I could figure out how to do to hold on to the schedule that I had, the obligations that I had, was to bring in spiritual teaching, spiritual practice. There was something about it that just filled me up in a way I couldn't get anywhere else. I read, I explored, I discovered whatever I was interested in, teachings, understandings, so that I could replenish something within me that I hadn't really quite put a language to or really defined and articulated. And so I started to basically build a spiritual practice kind of out of desperation in a way. Not that I don't love spirituality, but it was just it was a need. It was like drinking water when you're really thirsty. It was filling something in that I hadn't found in a really long time. And that kept me going for years. But I was hanging by a thread because it was just enough to recover for the next 6 days. And then I have to go and really take a whole day off and do some real rejuvenating and replenishing and really disconnect from work. I don't think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have lasted as long as I did. Of course, like all things, it was built on a house of cards. So it crashed, and it crashed pretty quickly. It crashed in one night. Everything was gone. When it finally stopped, it was quick. And there was this moment of stillness that I hadn't had in years. This quietness where I could really sit and assess what just happened. What did I put myself through? Where am I now? And where am I going? And I like to do this exercise on a regular basis in certain marks of time just to see and check in. I love being reflective so I can see my own growth. But this was really pivotal because I had such a strong focus on where I wanted to go, and it didn't pan out. And so what I was left with was this understanding that I had created myself into this creative producing machine that was highly functioning and yet really just completely hollowed out. And the only thing really left was this core feeling inside, this core identity, this core sense of spirit and self. I had also gotten a calling to be an energy healer about 6 to 8 months before everything crashed. So I had already gotten this turning within It was unexpected the way it happened, but it happened. And it let me know that the next phase of my life was coming. And that was 10 years ago. And so for the last 10 years, I've been working on this spiritual alignment with this creative alignment. And that blend between the two is what I've been working on the last 10 years. And so this is what eventually became creative wisdom and what I want to teach, which is this place that we want to create and stay at and let go of this survival mode burnout cycle that was used for a system to extract the passion out of creatives to make viable products in the marketplace. We live in a capitalist society, and the passion that creatives have been capitalized on. That is just how the system is. I'm not here to try and change the system, but I do want to recognize what the system is like. And I think that there's a better way. And that is why we're here. So I want to give you the real diagnosis of what I've learned and what burnout really actually means, both from living it and years of studying what's happening underneath. So burnout is not a workload problem. There are plenty of, and I know that sounds counterintuitive, but there are plenty of famous artists that have worked for decades and they have gone through all of the same pitfalls that we have as creatives, and yet they still continue to create and reinvent themselves. So we've been told to set better boundaries, say no to things, and take vacations. And those things do matter, but they matter when you already have a balanced life with your work and you understand this process where we're just maintaining just regular balance. It's very difficult when you're in a phase 4 in burnout to try phase 1 techniques. And if you want to know what phase you're in, there's a link down below. I have a creative burnout quiz that helps you identify what phase you're in. And there's lots of really good specific interventions and ways to understand and articulate where you're at. And so basically, we have these two frequencies that we can create from. It's either we're in survival mode and we're in this low-grade threat that we're always on defense, trying to figure out how to make things work. Everything feels slightly urgent. You're using your willpower to stay focused, which there's nothing wrong with, but that can't be the only mechanism. And you continue to push through the work rather than allowing it to come through. Now, like I said before, you can produce a lot of really great work while you're in survival mode. And I want to be really clear about this. Most highly creative, high-performing professionals work in survival mode. They pride themselves on this, and they make it look good. They make it look easy. But the cost is invisible, it compounds, and it's inevitable. Because when your nervous system, when your body feels like there's always a threat response, it's using emergency reserves. We're using energy that we don't really have, and it's not unlimited. We have to find a way to replenish the nerves, the calmness, the stress, and decompress so that we can access what I'm going to call this second state, which is called source creation. This is where your nervous system feels safe. The closest example I can give you is when you were a child and you were creating, you lost track of time, you lost track of what was going on, and you could do it for hours. You felt safe, you felt at ease, and you just allowed whatever wanted to come through, come through. And that's the fundamental difference, is that we can still create in either state. Even in source creation, there's still pressure, there's still deadlines, there's still urgency that doesn't go away. We live in a very material capitalist world. The difference is we know how to handle the pressure and we don't get activated. It doesn't trigger a threat response. We don't feel the urgency, or we know where to place it in the right way. We know how to detach emotionally when we put something together and we put everything into it and then we allow it to just be. We do learn this over time, but I feel like it happens through such difficult paths of burnout that we don't have to. And we can really hone in on what does make this place, this source creation place, work the best for us. And so when we're in source creation, the work feels different. Ideas come easily, things move through you. Rest actually restores you, and it's restorative. And when you finish a project, you feel satisfied. You feel happy with what you've created, what you've completed, and not just a sense of relief that it's done. And there's an aliveness to the work, to yourself, and you don't feel exhausted. You can feel tired because you've put in energy and you have to replenish that, but you don't feel like something's been taken from you. You don't feel like you are broken or fragmented at the end of it. It's really hard to access that kind of connection when everything feels like a threat, when everything feels like you have to be on the defense of what's going on in your environment. And again, if you work in a corporate environment, it's set up this way. It's set up to push you. It's set up to trigger you to always feel like you have to do more, be more, perform more, take on more, because that's the way it's built so that they get more out of you because they're paying for your time. There's nothing, whether you want to say it's right or wrong, that's not what the discussion is about. It's just that this is the environments that we're in. Designers are getting more and creatives are getting more responsibilities to take on, and the stress is just going to add more and more. So, in between these two frequencies, right, is really a conversation of the physiological state. How does my body feel in conjunction with my emotions, in conjunction with my thoughts? How do I feel? Can I feel safe enough where that I can open up? And this is the part that we want to get to. I want to open up that creative, intuitive intelligence to come online so that I can hear it, so that I have given it space, so that it has room to speak, so that ideas can just drop in. And those typically happen. The best ones have happened, at least for me, when I'm resting, when I'm really chill, when I'm just being. Things just, they have room to come in. And that is why just resting alone isn't going to fix it, because you need to also understand where your nervous system is at. It is very easy to come home, lay on a couch, and still be thinking about work, still thinking about emails, still thinking about conversations. Or you get on your phone and you start scrolling and you start fragmenting your energy and your thoughts because it's in all a bunch of different places. And then you feel drained because the app itself drained you of your energy. So it just paused what you needed to work on and it didn't actually recover you. So we want to be really mindful about even the rest. The rest is the most important part of the creative process. We want to be mindful about how we're setting ourselves up. And so if any of this resonated with you, feels like you, if you feel like you're in this cycle, if it sounds familiar, I really want you to hear this. You are not bad at putting up boundaries. You are not lazy and you are not burnt out because you work too much. You're burnt out because you've been creating from the wrong frequency in survival mode for a very long time. And nobody has taught any of us any other way but that. And that is not a character flaw. That is a gap in how creative professionals are trained. We get taught the craft, we get taught the strategy, we get taught how to manage projects and clients and timelines, but nobody teaches us how to manage that internal system that is specific to creatives, right? We all have a body, we all have pieces to us, but then there's this other essence that we bring to the table. We translate Google Docs and business requirements into magical experiences, into something that takes your breath away. And that is what this channel is about, is not the techniques. We've got tons of that out there. This is about that essence of being in a creative process, being in a creative flow all the time. People don't think that you can do it all the time because they've associated creative flow with output. No, no. Everything that I'm about to share here, the nervous system work, how to read the signals in the body, the spiritual frameworks that really just help guide you into inputting your own belief systems in that. And this idea of source creation, which we'll get into, is not about working less. I love working. My God, I love working. But I also love to rest. And I also know when I'm pushing at my edge, I have to make a negotiation with myself. I still do this today. I still have to negotiate with myself. Do I work an extra hour or should I go eat something? Like it's bananas, but I'm so dedicated to this work and to giving you value, but I do have to negotiate with myself to go grab a bite to eat or to go walk and move around because I will sit in front of a laptop. It doesn't end, but I have enough knowledge now to know when I'm being ridiculous, when I know what I need to go do, so that I can go do all of this again the next day. This is really about understanding our creative capacity so that we can sustain it, we can protect it, and we can create from the deepest places of ourselves. And we know where to put that and where not to put that. We know what projects that deserves and what projects that just get the bare minimum of us because that's all it requires. There's a creative life that you have either touched before or you know it exists. I want to tell you it does exist. It is not a fantasy. And it's what happens when we really understand our own internal system and use it the way it was designed to be used, not fitting into a machine to produce and produce and produce. And the fact that you're still here and you're still watching this, something in you already knows that this isn't working and that there is a better place to be. And you've probably felt the difference. I know you have. That's why you got into this industry, even if it was briefly, the moment when the creative ideas were flowing through you, when time just disappeared. We can get back to that. And it wasn't luck, it was source creation. And it's sustainable, it's learnable, and gosh darn it, it's for you. And this is what I'm here to teach, is to help access this in your own way, in your own process, protect it, sustain it, and leverage a very beautiful creative career for decades to come. And so, as I mentioned before, if this resonated with you and you feel like you're somewhere in the burnout cycle and you want to get off the wheel, I created a free creative burnout quiz. I have it pinned down below, and it's going to show you which of the 5 phases that you're in with specific interventions and specific language to help you articulate and be aware of what's going on. And the first step is always awareness, because the interventions in a phase 2 are not the same as a phase 4. Very different places. So in the next video, I'm going to get specific about the creative depletion cycle, what it actually looks like, the full pattern, and why we keep repeating it, and the first thing we can do to start shifting out of that. If this video really landed for you, if you feel like you've been in this cycle, I'd love if you could just drop a star emoji in the comments so that I can see. If you really like this content, consider subscribing, because from here, we build on everything on top of this. Thank you all for being here. I love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.